and welcome to the North American Egg Spotlight. I'm Chrissy Wozniak. Today I get to speak with a dear friend in the industry. Not only is he one of the kindest humans I've ever met, but his passion for regenerative agriculture is totally inspiring. Raised on a dairy farm in southwestern Ontario, the love of egg is in his blood. Now he serves as CEO of GAPS Ontario. I would like to welcome Gary Walker. Welcome, Gary, and thank you so much for being here.
Boy, thanks for that promo for me. I mean, I didn't realize. Now I got to get another hat. Thank you for everyone for listening to what my passion is. It took me 5 years away from my original business to get involved in this, and it grows from a passion of my grandson being the sixth generation on this farm. I no longer farm, but we rent the land out, and my son and his family live right next door here with us. And I know that my grandparents, my father, and myself have done a lot of harm to possibly the environment. And my dad and my grandfather have passed, and I guess the torch is on to me to try and do something to rectify what we've done for my grandchildren. And I must also say rectify it, but we done some things that we didn't know any better. We didn't have the education as to what we were doing. But now that we do have the education, I believe it's what we need to do.
Yeah, that's pretty honorable. And so what does GAPS actually stand for?
Stands for GA Phosphorus Solutions. When I got the name figured out, my wife wondered if I was selling clothing.
Yes.
Not such. My name is Gary Allen Walker, and so that's the GA. And the phosphorus came into light when I was a general manager for another company that done erosion control. And so at that point, we decided to separate, and I started my own business, and they are still in business. And I operate really closely with a project called the PRC project. And that project what excited me because it included farmers, it included city people, governments at 3 or 4 levels, however many levels you can find in the government. They all wanted to be involved with it. And to me, this phosphorus solution is something that is all of our problem, and we all need to find a solution. So they were the group I want to work with.
Right. And so why is phosphorus such an important issue for farmers and for the world, really?
So I just recently picked up a July 13th issue of Farmers, Today's Farmers. And the headline there is Beneath the Blooming Nuisance of Lake Erie's Algae.
Right.
We have no idea as farmers and keepers of the soil. And some of us do. I shouldn't paint everyone with the same brush. There's a lot of misunderstandings out there, and we as farm community have a huge effect on what Lake Erie is. And we're not all the people that affect it, but we have 3 to 4 rain events a year that cause a great effect. A third of Lake Erie's water comes from our basin, and around 2.6 million people feed into that. So we are the breadbasket, and we do feed into that. So to me, phosphorus is something that's will run out in time, and we need to use it properly. It's needed, and algae really likes it. So if we can keep it on our farmland and not send it to the lake, then algae will be missing one of the 3 ingredients it needs, and that's heat, sunshine, and food. And the nutrients, if we can keep them on our land, then we're not going to hurt the lake as bad.
Right. Well, I live about a mile and a half from Lake Erie, and I can tell you that those algae blooms are bad. You do not want to be on the beach. It smells bad, and the fish die. There's fish all over the beaches during a bloom, and yeah, so it is a big issue, isn't it?
And that was the thrust of this issue. They were talking about the fishing industry and what it's doing to them, and it is having a huge effect. There are dead zones in Lake Erie,
Yeah.
and we didn't have that when I was a kid. So
Mm-hmm.
what have we done?
So can you explain what the different methods are that you use to remove phosphorus on the farm?
So as I said before, 3 to 4 rain events in a year are the major contributors, and it is runoff. So we put phosphorus along with different nutrients on our soil to make the plants grow better. If the timing is wrong, and that is manure spreading also. There's phosphorus in manure and then in the nitrates in it. It will run off, and so I'm involved in 5 different projects, and the one that has come to the top is a project that we run with open drainage systems in agriculture. So there's 2 kinds of drainage, open and closed. And the open ones will catch that surge of runoff. And that's where the loading happens, the largest loading happens. And so we have open catch basin closures that will treat the water as it goes through. And Hickenbottoms, we treat the water before it goes through there. And one of the very important things is the flow rate, because as a farmer, I put tile in my farmland to drain it off so as I can get on it better so it doesn't kill the plants. So flow rate is really important. So we flow that through different kinds of material to basically make a filter for phosphorus. And we have collected a lot of data behind all 5 projects, and that one in particular works the best at this point.
Right. And what other ways do you use as well?
So we have a site at the Chippewa, the First Nations. We work closely with the folks down there, and that's right on the Thames. And the water is very important to them, as it should be to all of us. We have a farmer down there that understands why, and he rents the land from the land trust with the from the reserve. The native people have been really good with us to allow us in there and work on it. That particular system, we buried a 12,000 gallon tank, and we're able to load that tank with different kinds of material. And we're able to direct the flow from a closed drain system into that tank at whatever levels we require. Wow. We're working closely with OMAFRA with some of the, a lot of the data that we can record. We have to have a way to do that, and OMAFRA has allowed us that way. Some of the products we've used in there is we've used a smart sponge, they call it. It's a iron impregnated wood. We've used a nanotechnology coming out of the States that done a job, but it's quite expensive. We've used biochar in there. At this point right now, we have zeolite in there. And so this whole system is set up such that at any time we can remove, clean it out, and put in new product. And we've spent over 2 years now collecting data on different products. The next one we're heading to, I believe, will be a product, well, they're using it right now in another setup that I'm not looking after it totally, but along with the Lower Thames and myself, we look after that, and it's down near Chatham. And that particular product that's in there right now is out of the University of Windsor, and it's a manufactured product that that the results aren't in on yet. So those are three. I'm also involved. I do the site work and all the coordination of a site on the Medway Creek, Medway River, some people call it creek, some people call it river, but it's right beside the University of Western Ontario. And we work with a guy from out in BC called Muddy River.
Mm-hmm.
They have a different way of they electrically charge rods of magnesium. And in that way, without getting into all the details, which I'm not always sure of anyway, because my background is not necessarily in the chemical end of it.
Mm-hmm.
But so we send that through a cation that holds all the equipment.
Oh, wow.
Just recently, that particular project is in the throes of getting handed over to the University of Western Ontario. And we work closely with the environment people there, Martha Dagnew, and there's a young man who's doing his master's, and that's his thesis is phosphorus removal. So there's certainly a lot of projects out there that are underway. Another one that I'm not as closely connected to is a project around Granton. That's a small town north of London, and then there's another situation that would be east of London, east and kind of south. And they use canisters with iron slag in it to same sort of filtration as my tank.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So there's a lot of projects going on in my life.
Yes, I guess. Yeah, and you mentioned biochar. I've heard a lot about that in the last few years. So first of all, how is that made? What is biochar?
So biochar, I import it. First of all, I searched around to find the best biochar. Biochar is not something that's created equal, as you and I are not created equal. When good biochar is made, it's made through a process of pyrolysis, and that's really high heat and low oxygen. So it's basically cooked. And that, if you look at it in a microscope, has a whole bunch, it has a honeycomb effect of chambers. And those chambers are like a water tank for the soil. So they will hold soil and nutrients. So just with that short version theory, if we've got chambers in there that will attract phosphorus, then we can put it in the water, put it in the soil, and it'll attract the phosphorus. It also attracts other nutrients because I have an ongoing, it's more than a project now. They're using my product up near Walkerton, the land of the water problems. Mm-hmm. And it's Lake Rosalind, and they are in the third year of using the product to make their lake accessible to their over 250 people that live around this small lake. They drink and they play in the water. So that's as important to them as the water is on the Chippewa. So I guess that's the biochar. So I can go on and on about biochar, but that's the water remediation, or that's the water end of it, and the water remediation. And then I can go on to the soil amendment. So if you put it in soil, and I mean it's been done for thousands of years down in South America, and it's getting some traction right now with organic people, especially. The soil amendment allows, of course, those little holding tanks for water, and it also holds nutrients in there. So, the first year that this biochar is put in your soil, it won't necessarily show up in a huge positive, but as soon as the soil gets the right percentage, which is around, I suggest to golf courses that they run about 3 to 4% volume. So that's per volume. So talking about the top 3 inches of the soil. Yeah, so that's kind of the two ways we use the biochar.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've heard that it can also be used as a feed additive for cattle. Is that true?
Yeah. So speaking with a local feedlot, another young person, and I love it when I speak with young people, because that means that there is life in this whole system, that we're going to fix it. The young lady, her thesis was feeding a feedlot of cattle with biochar mixed into it. And to make it tastier, they put some molasses on it, and that tasted better. So it went through their digestive system, and in turn assisted in odor suppression.
Oh.
And
That's interesting.
And in the same situation now, it's gone through the animal and it's going to the soil. So, it's already activated as it gets to the field, activated through the digestive system and the manure. So it was and that was so there's a ton of stuff going on with biochar. It's it's one of those old things that are being revived, and quite a product, I think.
Yeah. And you said you work a lot with golf courses as well. So what kind of solutions do you have for them?
We haven't worked with the soil amendments at this point. It's all water remediation. So I sell to the Ontario Seed Company, and those people are known to sell the little packets of seed that you pick up in the store and grow in your garden. They also sell a ton of fertilizer and everything else under the sun. And the gentleman I deal with, he sells to about 700 golf province of Ontario, and this year he tripled his order for their ponds. So we put them in a bag, we kill them a biochar sack, we sink them down to 6 inches below the top of water, and again that becomes a holding tank for the bad stuff that we want to get out of there. And golf courses are notorious for wanting their water to look clean and their greens to look green. So the greener they look, the more stuff they put on, and the more I have to take out of the pond. So, and it seems to be working quite well so far.
Yeah, so it's similar to putting charcoal in your pond then?
Yeah, and you got to be really careful about saying charcoal. Biochar and charcoal are way kind of like a blonde and a white hair. Quite different. We relate it as charcoal to the individuals who don't quite understand it, to kind of introduce what it really is. So I think relating it to the average household, it'd be like the filter system that they put in a fish tank.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff they put in a fish tank, and you know what it does, or put it in a fish tank, and you could throw it in your fish pond too, Chrissy.
I know. Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. This sounds great for my pond.
Yeah, wouldn't hurt it at all. And the lifespan of biochar is thousands of years. So once you put it there, I guess if you're putting it in ponds that are continually fed with the wrong stuff, then you do have to remove your sack. So that's why we put in a sack, so we can rejuvenate that. But then again, and that in itself is a good thing, because once I remove it from a project, I can take it out and spread it on my field. It
Right.
does absolutely no harm. In
Wow.
fact, now it's activated when I spread it on my farm.
Mhm.
And I must say too that my company, I refuse to deal with chemicals.
Mhm.
So anything I deal with is non-chemical and environmentally sound and friendly. I
Right.
guess I could call it green, but biochar is black.
Yeah. So what do you recommend that producers do to help minimize the phosphorus runoff that's contributing to the problem?
So I work very closely with a gentleman called Charlie Lalonde.
Mhm.
Charlie,
Great person.
oh, is just a wealth of knowledge. I
Mhm.
mean, that man, he's got more knowledge in his little finger than most people have in their whole body in a lifetime.
I believe
And
it.
his contacts are just awesome because he was in the middle to upper management with OMAFRA for 30 some years.
Wow.
He now has a 5-year-old consulting firm, and that's his passion. And honestly, we both come from a farm background. I come from a dairy farm. He's originally up in Quebec, a large farm, large family, and our passions are so similar. We want to make this place a better place for our grandchildren. And
Mhm.
so we're in the process right now. I'm putting together a fact sheet, a price list, and upscaling one of the projects.
Mhm.
And he's searching out grants. He's very adept at that. He has contacts all over the place. So, coming up, I believe that we will be coming out with a tried, proven, and a data-backed system to look after runoff
Awesome. And would it be on farm or?
on farm only.
Yep. Awesome. Yep.
That's most of my focus is on farm
Mhm.
because again, in the past, the more educated people have kind of pointed fingers at agriculture
Mhm.
as a real bad actor in sending bad stuff down to the lake.
Mhm.
That being said, they're not totally wrong. Farmers need to get things together. But farmers aren't the only ones that have an influence on what's happening in our lake.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons we do all these R&D projects, is to prove either way, right or wrong,
Mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
And
And being backed by actual data is the best way to go, right? And because you're involved in all of these research projects, and I know you have a few of the results on your website, I believe, or videos on
yeah,
your
they're
website.
mostly on the PRC website.
Okay.
So if
Mhm.
if you want to look for all these results, because honestly, I'm the guy that does all the leg, or not all, but does leg work on R&D.
Mhm.
When I find an R development that works, I put it in my toolbox and I take it out to the end users.
Mhm.
So the data is backed by labs and so on and so forth, not yours truly, a third party. Because
Right.
when
Yeah.
I deal with you as a customer, um, to tell you everything I've done doesn't always work in my mind. It has to be
Yeah.
third party.
Absolutely. Yeah.
One of the most recent things that I've run across is a couple of young lads, two graduates from the Ivy School of Business. So they've graduated. They've got some business wishes. One of them actually ended up on Shark Tank with one of his businesses and apparently done well. I haven't got into it too deeply, but they've approached me about the biochar to put it into soil. So I'm I'm not the guy that is going to go out and knock on the farmer's door and say, here's a square meter of biochar, spread it on your farm and it will cost you. I'm
Mhm.
just looking at benefits. And so these gentlemen, I am just in the middle of collaborating with these young men that I believe will attempt to change the world. And
Mhm.
that's always the good thing about youth. I don't have enough time left to change the world, but they might. So aligning with those gentlemen, um, soil amendment, like soil amendment is where they want to go.
Mhm.
And that's great for me because soil amendment is something that I have only dabbled with. The water remediation is more where I'm at. And the soil amendment is really important because of the organic farmers in our community.
Mhm.
And these lads, they want to give the farmers a reason why they should use whatever they recommend because their bank account will grow. And if there's anything I've learned from farming, if it doesn't have a rate of return, I'm sorry, go sell it to my neighbor because I'm too busy trying to meet my
Okay.
expenses. And
Yeah, I
by
was talking to them last week, and I will have them on a future show. You're right; they're so inspiring, and yeah, what they want to do is collect the organics from the city of London, I believe,
yes,
and then mix it with biochar, and then do soil testing and find farmers that this particular mix would help. So I think that's a really cool idea. I can't wait to talk to them on the show about that.
carbon credits. Thank you,
Mhm.
Chrissy.
Yes.
Carbon credits. So
Yeah.
carbon credits are an up and coming, wonderful, wild, unregulated, who knows, and but to be prepared for it,
Mhm.
it's like a barn full of cattle. If you leave the gate out and they get out, then you got to go chase them. But if you keep the gate closed, you're prepared for
Mhm.
keeping them fed and keeping them there. So I believe that they're closing the gate on some of these situations, and they'll. I'm looking forward to. They've brought me on as a consultant, and before get my mind didn't go in the right way when I hear about a couple of Ivy School grads and both from the city and they want to make farming better and all that sort of thing. So it's one of those yeah, sure, okay. And I have a cousin that we talked about it and he was kind of yeah, shrugging his shoulders. So they've hired me to talk with these farm people on their level, and not up or down but sideways level, their level of what they need and what they want to hear from these chaps. So they're willing to learn, really learning,
All right.
and so that's what I'm going to help them do with the farm community.
There was an article in National Geographic last October, and writer Julia Rosen stated nearly all of the phosphorus that farmers use today and that we consume in the food we eat is mined from a few sources of phosphate rock, mainly in the United States, China, and Morocco. By some estimates, those could run out in as little as 50 to 100 years. So, my question is how can farmers reduce their use of phosphorus now and ease their dependence on it for the future when this does eventually run out?
So right now we're doing another test project at the Chippewa site, and this project is feeding the plants with a product that will help them uptake the phosphorus and make better use.
Okay.
We only use about 40% of the phosphorus when we put it out in the land. We lose it. Um, we've got to learn how to use it properly, or that 50 to 100 years could be less.
Yeah.
So, this product, we're just in the data testing stages, and it's on a wheat field right now. So it's sprayed on. It's a really easy product to put there, and I'll put a kick out for my friend Tom. The name of the company is Penergetic, and these are the people that I want to be involved with because they have the same focus that I have.
Another set of really great people. Mm.
Yes,
Yeah.
so when this Penergetic is used,
Mhm.
the root system spreads out further. And when it spreads out further, they can get better use of whatever's in the soil. It also promotes the microbial soil samples. So if you were to look at a field, we look at a field of corn. I glance out my window and it's looking really good in my area right now. Mm-hmm. All we see is that corn, growing or not. We don't realize that half of our available growth is the soil, and there's a whole life cycle underneath in that soil. So if we treat that soil properly, let the microbes grow, let the roots grow, we'll end up with a better yield in our crops. I really don't want companies like CIL and the big chemical companies to get bent out of shape, but it reduces the use of chemicals in their fertilizers. So it's going, we know it's a hard push, but the organic type of push is getting a lot larger. And just in my time on the farm here, I mean, we kind of done the organic thing when we would do summer fallow. Mm-hmm. You can't afford to do that anymore. You got to get the crop in, out, and do whatever you got to do with it.
Yeah.
I kind of liken it to this Penergetic allowing you to do that again. Mm-hmm. And there's some other situations where I've researched and talked to other companies. Back to the biochar, there is a company out west that they have incorporated about 4 to 5% biochar in their animal waste. They got a feedlot of 20,000. In layman's term, that's a lot of poop to get rid of. Mm-hmm. So what they do is they dry it, they heat it, they use the heat that comes from it, they pelletize it, and they use the energy in their feedlot from that whole system, and they put biochar with it. I've got samples of this organic fertilizer that can be spread with any commercial applicator of any other fertilizer. So this stuff, it's seamless. You can put a bag of fertilizer in one end of the spreader and a bag of this stuff in the other, and mm-hmm. the fertilizer spreader doesn't choke on it. Wow. And it's dried down too. So
well, that's really cool.
Yeah, there's and that company is called Earth Renew. They need a kick too. And by the way, I like to promote the people I deal with. The biochar that I deal with is in Colorado. James is worked closely with me, and he's got Biochar Now is the company's name. And anything that comes to Ontario through him has been directed towards me. Mm-hmm. We also we're hearing news that as soon as this pandemic gets kind of straightened around, that they may be producing it right here in Mississauga. So nice. That will really, really make it a lot easier, a lot more affordable because of the lack of transportation and lack of money exchange. Yeah. So there's a lot of things on the horizon that the sun's shining, starting to shine.
Yes, that's good. So yeah, speaking of the pandemic, changing lanes a little bit, how has the pandemic affected your business?
It like everything else, it's kind of changed it, but I'm not the guy that looks at the dark cloud. I look at the silver lining in it. Mm-hmm. This last while, it slowed my projects down. Fortunate enough to be on the downside of all the grant money, so it was just wrapping a lot of stuff up. The Chippewa site were allowing me on their property to deal with whatever I had to deal with. It's really allowed me a lot of reading time and education from my point of view. I don't really hit the streets that much at this point in time. I think the education value and just what we're doing right today, and I really hope there's a farmer or two out here that is listening to this and and scratches their head and goes, "Hey, I should give that guy a call." And you can find me on a website, and I guess you'll probably post it on your podcast somewhere along the line,
That's right. Yep.
And put on my
Where they
connections
can
on
find
there.
them.
Yeah. So anyone who wants to challenge anything I've said, or wants to be curious about what I've said, my ears are wide open.
Yeah.
I will talk to anybody. Anyone that knows me knows I have one gift at least, and that is the gab.
Yep, that's for sure. You do love to talk about this stuff. It's so great. Yeah. And what do you think are some of the greatest opportunities that in agriculture right now, from your point of view?
We have an opportunity to fix what we've messed up. The will is there, and I'd like to take a quote out of this article. We know how the problems can be fixed. We just need the will to change agricultural practices to address nutrient loading. Algae is simple creatures. They need sunlight, they need carbon dioxide, they need nutrients. So that's our opportunity. And I think the opportunity is to do better for our soil and our bank account at the same time.
Right.
Yeah, it's a big wish, but I think we have that opportunity.
That's awesome. So I have one last question for you.
Yes.
What did God put you on this earth to accomplish, and what gets you out of bed in the morning?
My grandkids, my family, the love of my neighbor, my friends. That's why I got the shot, because I care. So that's my passion. I don't need to leave a legacy. I just need to leave a better place for my kids to live.
Yep, you can't beat that, can you?
I hope not.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Gary. It was a pleasure, as always, to chat with you.
Thank you so much. Can hardly wait to see you in person again.
Yep. Yeah, and get one of the big Gary hugs.
Oh, that's it. Well, I was being careful. And
yeah, that's your other gift. You can talk a lot and you give great hugs. So now you're gonna have people just running up to you, hugging you just to test, right?
No, that's all right.
Yeah.
As long as they don't whisper anything in my ear.
Good point. Well, thanks to all who are watching or listening. And if you want more information, the links will be provided in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe to North American Ag Spotlight on YouTube and Rumble. And the podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, Amazon, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.